for the 5th Tuesday.
And it's 6:30. So at this time, we will call this meeting of the Laramie City Council for August 17th.
Recording in progress.
We will call this meeting for the Laramie City Council for August 17th, 2021 to order. I'd ask you all to please join me for the Pledge of Allegiance, however you're able to do so. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States
of America,
and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty
and justice for all.
Thank you very much. Members of the council, let's have the city clerk do a roll call.
Humby.
Here.
Gabriel.
Here.
Harrington.
Here.
O'Doherty.
Here.
Schmeckler.
Here.
Sorry, I totally said that wrong. My sincere apologies. Schuster.
Here.
Somerville.
Here.
Pierce.
Here.
Weaver.
Here.
That's 9 present and 0 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, city clerk. All members are present. Thank you, members of the council. Now move to public comment on non-agenda items. Public comment on non-agenda items. I know we have some comment prepared for agenda items. Seeing none. Seeing none, we will close the public comment period for non-agenda items. And go into item number 5, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the agenda be set as submitted.
Second.
There's been a motion and a second. All those in favor say aye or raise your hand or both.
Aye. 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 Aye.
The agenda is set. We have a proclamation. We have 2 proclamations this evening. The first proclamation is honoring Hunger Action Month. I'll read the proclamation now without objection. Whereas addressing the food insecurity needs of children, youth, men, women, seniors, active military, and veterans today is fundamental for the future of the city of Laramie. And whereas hunger and poverty are issues of vital concern in Albany County, where 13.3% of people struggle with hunger, not knowing where their next meal will come from, or choosing between food and utilities, housing or medicine. And whereas the need for comprehensive, coordinated emergency food programs place upon our community a critical responsibility. And whereas the city of Laramie is committed to combating hunger in every part of our community and providing additional resources to those in need. And whereas it is our responsibility as citizens of Laramie to learn about hunger and to do our part in reducing that hunger. And whereas Laramie partners with Food Bank of Wyoming, a member of the Feeding America nationwide network of food banks, and their local partner, Laramie Soup Kitchen, to educate people about the important role of hunger relief organizations, raising awareness for the need to devote more resources and attention to hunger and food insecurity issues. And whereas more than 1,079 residents of Albany County rely annually on food provided by Wyoming Food Bank of the Rockies and their local partners. And whereas Food Bank of Wyoming, its generous funders, volunteers, and local partner agencies are committed to educating citizens on the role of food banks and hunger relief efforts in solving hunger. And whereas Food Bank of Wyoming provides over 10.9 million meals across Wyoming annually, and to engage each of us to help end hunger one meal at a time, either through donations, social media shares, or volunteer shifts. And whereas the month of September is designated Hunger Action Month in order to bring attention to food insecurity in our communities. Now, therefore, be it resolved that I, Paul Weaver, acting as mayor and president of the governing body of the city of Laramie, Wyoming, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as Hunger Action Month and encourage all citizens to increase their understanding and awareness of food insecurity and how it impacts our nation, state, county, and communities. I will therefore set my hand and cause the official seal of the city to be affixed this 17th day of August in 2021. Now, City Clerk, I understand that we have some folks here to speak to us with regard to this proclamation, and we're glad to have them. I'm not sure in which order we would like our guests to go, and I will guess that they probably haven't had a chance to figure that out either. So, quick on the draw, Mr. Watanabe, or Ted. I about called you Mr. Soup Kitchen because that's what you have on your screen. Whoever would like to speak first.
Here.
Mr. Watanabe, you're up and you're there. City Clerk.
We also have Sierra with us tonight. I can't
Sierra,
tell you
there
which
you are.
organization she's with, but I do know she's here for the proclamation as well.
Sierra, you'll get a chance to talk to us about your organization and anything else you'd like to. And I'm going to go in order of Mr. Watanabe, yourself, and then we'll go to our partner from the Soup Kitchen. Ted, good to see you. Mr. Watanabe, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and members of City Council. As read in the proclamation, this is an issue that affects many within our community, and we are proud to work with the city, with Food Bank of Wyoming, with all of our many partners. This takes many organizations. It's not just us, although we're certainly recognized for this, but our donors, the city, the county, Ted and I work together. The local grocery stores here. Even the corporate ones, they all contribute to this and help us solve the problem. It will never be solved, so to speak. This will continue. This is a fight that we will continue to do undoubtedly for a very, very long time. It's one that I think I speak for Ted and myself, that we are very proud to participate in and to help our community. And your recognition of that, your proclamation only helps to bring better awareness and to help shine a light on what we do. And I know we're both very appreciative of that. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Appreciate your highlighting the partnerships that go into this in our nonprofit community. And of course, the city tries to be a partner with all of you as well. Those statistics are not happy ones. I don't want to characterize them, but I'll just say that they're not good. 13.3% in our community is a shockingly high number, I would think, to most people, but it is the number. Ms. Guzman, why don't you go ahead and talk to us about your organization and add your comments as well, and welcome again.
Yeah. Hi, everyone. I'm Sierra, and I am serving through AmeriCorps with the Food Bank of Wyoming. And so basically, we just kind of sent out this proclamation and we wanted to kind of have this attention brought to the food insecurity. We've been working really hard this past year, pulling together different statistics and kind of taking a closer look at what issues are really facing our community. And unfortunately, childhood food insecurity is one of the bigger issues, as well as elderly, people of color, and veterans. So looking at those different groups and kind of figuring out what we can do to serve them better. Working with the food bank here in Albany County, I've had the great pleasure of seeing the amazing work being done by Laramie Interfaith, Laramie Soup Kitchen, Feeding Laramie Valley, the University Food Pantry. And so we just want to really appreciate all the awesome work being done by our partners, because it really is a community effort to kind of work on these problems together. And like Josh said, it's not something that we're going to solve, but that's why our new motto is wherever hunger rises, so can we. And so we just really want the community to know that we're here and we're fighting for them. And so that's really what this proclamation is all about.
Thank you very much. And we're fortunate to have you and to have you working with the Food Bank of the Rockies and to have that organization working to try and help folks with this issue. And I think it's right that you emphasize that it's an issue that isn't going to go away necessarily. Circumstances change for people. Today's food insecure person could be tomorrow's donor. Today's donor could be tomorrow's recipient. It's just the nature of it, and I think that's important for us to realize as well. Mr. Kramer, thanks for being here. Go ahead. Can't hear you. Can't hear you, Ted. Still having trouble with the audio. We'll give him a minute.
Ted does an awesome job. Mayor, Soup Kitchen,
Yep.
Interfaith, Sierra's organization, outstanding.
All critical pieces, all needed, all serving people in different ways. Soup Kitchen, certainly a long-standing, recognized and appreciated part of helping people have enough to eat in Laramie. No question. We'll give Mr. Kramer just one more second to see if we can fix his audio, and if he can't, not tonight, Ted. But I know that yourself, your staff, your volunteers do a lot of hard work to address this issue, and frankly, we're never shy about acknowledging that. As you've all said, it's unfortunate that we have this issue to deal with. On the other hand, it could be so much worse if we did not have agencies like the Food Bank, like the Soup Kitchen, and like Interfaith to try to help folks address it when they have those needs. Those needs are high, and they'll continue, but those agencies that you're all here representing will continue to try to help with the challenge as well. And we're thankful and grateful for it. And we appreciate your attendance here this evening. Members of the council, we have another proclamation this evening on a food-related topic. And that is a proclamation in recognition of National Food Safety Education Month, another very important aspect of personal nutrition. I'm going to read the proclamation now. Whereas the city of Laramie is strongly committed to food safety and to highlighting food safety's critical role in the health and well-being of our residents through the prevention of foodborne illness. And whereas the Food Safety and Inspection Service of the city of Laramie focuses on protecting public health by working diligently to ensure the safety of the city's commercial food services. And whereas the City of Laramie Food Safety and Inspection Service provides information to food preparers on the safe handling, preparation, and storage through plan reviews and annual inspections of commercial food service providers. Now, therefore, to further increase awareness of the value of food safety education, I, Paul Weaver, Mayor and President of the City of Laramie, City Council, do hereby proclaim September 2021 as National Food Safety Education Month, and the City of Laramie encourages the commercial food service providers and residents of our community to celebrate the importance of food safety by increasing their education and practices surrounding food safety measures for the benefit of individuals and families in our community. And I understand that we have some familiar faces joining us. I'd like to welcome all of you. And I see that the Assistant City Manager has joined us as well. Assistant City Manager, before I go to Dr. Comley, did you have something you wanted to add to this proclamation statement?
Not really. Cody Talbot's out at the state fair. He's managing the steer barn. He's our environmental health specialist, but we're super excited far and wide for our environmental health with City of Laramie. The bulk of his time is spent on food safety inspections. We have a great community here that takes good care of food service, and for the month of September, we do plan to do social media encouraging both our residents and our food handlers to follow in the stead of safe food handling practices and encourage everybody to attend Serve Safe through the State Department of Ag. And we'd be happy to answer any questions there.
A super critical and somewhat unrecognized part of the local government services, those inspection and safety services. It's kind of like when you turn on your tap, you hope that good quality, safe water comes out, and the city ensures that that's what happens. When you go out to eat and when you go buy some food from one of your favorite restaurants, well, there's a role for that agency as well to help educate and promote food safety. So I think that's great. Are there any questions for Mr. Fieser on this? I don't see any, and we are definitely in recognition of that aspect of the city staff and the work that they do. Dr. Comley, thanks for being here. Why don't I turn it over to you for any comments you'd like to make as a member of our Board of Health. It's really kind of you to be here, and we appreciate it. So over to you.
Well, thank you. Yeah, I just want to thank you for making this proclamation, and we are trying our best to make our commercial food restaurants and other organizations with good food safety so that our patrons here in Laramie can be assured that we have good food. And I can't do anything about the other things in the restaurant, but we can assure food safety.
Absolutely. Absolutely. That's one of the functions that the Public Health Committee, our board, works on. And as always, we appreciate the volunteer time and expertise lent to those committees. We'd be in a bad spot without you, and the city's very grateful for the time and energy spent. I see that we've got
that computer. I don't know what comes up on yours, but Dr. Conley's page on here says Jessica Stalder on it.
She's here.
I changed the address on that computer.
I think there may have been a need for tech support on this call.
Yes.
Provided by
Plenty of tech support.
provided by our former council member. And thank you for doing that. I see we've got another guest here, a couple of folks, I think, from our health board. And, if any of you would like to speak further to this issue or make any comments, you can raise your hand through the Zoom platform with the button, and we'll call on you. Otherwise, we just appreciate your being here. And once again, and I don't think we can really say this enough, that volunteer time is so valuable and that expertise is so valuable. And much like making sure people have enough to eat, making sure that people have safe food to eat is pretty critical. It doesn't get much more essential in terms of a public safety measure. Nobody would like to return to the days prior to public safety measures for restaurants. Well, we thank you very much for being here. It's appropriate to see all of you, and we're glad. And so we thank you again. All right. Well, members of the council, that takes us to the next part of our agenda, which is a presentation on community vaccination efforts. And for that, I'd like to call on Councilmember Cumby.
Mayor, is this out of order? Was there a one before me?
This is simply, oh, well, let me see. No, we had Hunger Action Month and National Food Safety, and now we have a presentation, on my agenda anyway, for community vaccination efforts update and further information. And I did see that the city manager turned her camera on as well. So, Councilor Cumby, if your comments are better saved for later in the agenda, then that's fine, and we can certainly go to city staff.
Yes, I think we have a number of people here to speak, and I would like to defer to them and give them the platform for speaking. I was confusing this with our resolution 2021-57. Sorry, Mr. Mayor.
No apology needed, and I don't think it was a matter of confusion. I think they're interrelated, but as far as comments now, we'd see if there were any from anyone else that's been working on this effort. Seeing none, we may just reserve comment and discussion on this item when it comes up later in the agenda. I see that our manager from Recreation Center, Jody Guerin, has joined us. And if Jody, hello, thanks for being here. If you'd like to add to this conversation at this point in the agenda, you're certainly welcome to.
I was just going to let you know that our anticipation was that we would speak during the agenda item for the resolution, so we can hold our comments until then.
That sounds great.
Thank you.
All right. We'll move on then and go into our monthly staff recognition. City Manager, over to you.
Hello. Good evening, Council. I think first we do have an announcement from the Public Works Department, and then I look forward to recognizing our Employee of the Month.
That's right. We absolutely do have an announcement because I requested that it be made. I apologize. Mr. Webb, thanks for being here. Why don't you talk to us about what you're here to talk to us about?
You bet. Honorable Mayor, City Council. As you all know, we started accepting glass for recycling at the Laramie landfill. Solid waste staff has set up a couple containers near the front entrance to make it convenient for customers to drop off glass there at the landfill. Residents don't need to sort the glass by color or anything like that. We just ask that they remove caps, corks, and lids. Once those smaller containers near the front, as they start to fill, staff will transfer those smaller containers back to a larger holding area that we have. And then when we get a full load, we'll be transporting that to Momentum Glass in Colorado. Momentum's currently able to cover the cost for transportation. So using our existing staff and equipment at the landfill results in a no-cost program. Momentum Glass cleans, sanitizes, and crushes the glass into different sizes of cullet. They then sell the cullet to multiple industries, including new glass manufacturing, fiberglass manufacturing, and abrasive manufacturing like sandblast media. The one thing we really want to remind everybody is this restarting glass recycling does not mean you can put that in your curbside container, your curbside recycling container. The broken shards of glass that occur in there can contaminate the entire load of recyclables. So right now, if you want to recycle glass, the landfill is open 8 to 4:30, Monday through Saturday, and there's no charge for the recycling.
No charge for the recycling. You don't need to sort it by color, and it's available every day that the landfill is open.
Yes, sir.
That is fantastic, and I can tell you that we've had a positive reception for this program, as I'm sure you're aware. And
yeah, Mayor, we were kind of trying to do a slow start, soft opening, but I hear we got almost 15,000 hits on our Facebook announcement for glass recycling.
Well, I think that just speaks to the level of enthusiasm for having a readily daily available glass recycling program. Sorry that the soft start didn't go as planned, but people want to recycle that glass. And we thank you guys out there, all the staff, for everything that you've done to try to make that happen. And you did, and we love it. Community's all for it. And thanks for making that announcement as well. Look forward to hearing maybe some more updates in the future about those numbers, because I bet they're gonna stay high. Councilor Gabriel, yeah.
Brooks, I just had a quick question for you about getting the word out to perhaps the university, LCCC, school district, WyoTech, organizations like that. I encountered a couple of recycling people last week here at UW and asked them about glass recycling. They weren't even aware of it. So I was just kind of wondering what kind of a PR campaign the city would put together to let these organizations know about the glass recycling.
Sure, Councilor Gabriel, through you, Mayor. The solid waste manager's been working on getting basically some flyers and mailers together, which we'll be getting out to multiple organizations around the city, including the ones you mentioned. He's actually out of town this week. He's at a solid waste conference, getting his credits for recertification. But when he returns next week, I think we'll see a lot bigger push on that PR portion of things. Like I said, flyers and mailers will be going out to those larger entities.
Thank you.
Even though it's known far and wide, there's still more people to tell about, and inform about our glass program. So that's I think, going to remain very popular. I know some of the members of the council have been concerned about it and putting some effort towards it for a long time. I know the staff has as well. So again, that's not one of those things that I think we can say thank you enough times for. So we do appreciate it. It's a big deal. City manager, I think now it's probably time to call on you to talk to us about our Rockstar of the Month.
Hi, good evening, everybody. It's my honor to talk about Miss Danny Shepard this evening. Danny is a Parks and Recreation Administrative Coordinator working primarily in the Recreation Center facility, although she does do stints elsewhere across the city, including, interestingly enough, in the cemetery. And she talked about working there and doing some headstone removal and how gratifying that activity was. It was pretty cute. Anyway, Danny was nominated to be our rock star or employee of the month by the business specialist out at the Recreation Center and by a number of her coworkers. And they nominated her, noting that she's just really unfailingly kind and has an amazing can-do attitude and really just gets things done. I was able to work with Danny myself recently when we planned the solar panel recognition with Rocky Mountain Power out at the Recreation Center, and she was top-notch professional and had things whipped into shape and ready to roll before anybody else even knew they needed to be whipped into shape. So she's definitely a rock star here in our organization. Danny has a Bachelor of Science degree in Business Administration from the University of Wyoming, and she talks about, when we talk to her, how different her job is post-COVID. And I wanted to convey that to the council and the public because that is notable for so many jobs here at the city, and in particular for Danny's position, as she's worked with our recreation staff and the assistant city manager to try to make sure that we are engaging in adequate promotional efforts to bring people back to our centers and to our recreational wellness programs. So really thrilled to have the chance to talk about Danny a little bit tonight, and I'm not sure if Todd or Jody would like to add anything to the conversation. I see that they're here. I'm not sure if they're here for this item. Unfortunately, I do not believe Danny is with us tonight, but we can all send her praise and accolades sort of through sentiment and virtually.
Honorable Mayor, if I could, I would just like to echo the city manager's comments. Danny came to us the year prior to the pandemic, and she has been instrumental in helping us navigate all kinds of computer changes that we've done. If you notice, the city Parks and Rec page is undergoing some changes. Those are largely due to her efforts. She's also helped us transition our software for registration. That's been just an enormous undertaking, and it's true. She's just the kindest, most pleasant person. I couldn't ask for anything more in terms of, having somebody that is kind of the glue between all of our different divisions. She's awesome.
Thank you for that. I think there's an appreciation from the council across the city staff, but it's always good to hear more about these jobs because it just drives home the point. Every job counts and plays an important role for residents in the city of Laramie. So we're glad to hear about it, and we are glad to see Danny being given this recognition this evening. Well, council, that takes us now to disclosures. I'll ask the city council if there are any members that have any disclosures to make about any items that are on the agenda this evening. Seeing none, takes us to item number 8. Turn it over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move that the consent agenda be approved and that each specific action on the consent agenda be approved as indicated.
Second.
Motion and a second from Councilmember Harrington. City Clerk, may I have a roll call on the consent agenda?
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
That motion carries. The agenda has been approved as indicated. Brings us now to item number 10, the regular agenda. Immediately next, item number 11, which is Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I move to approve a contract for green waste grinding services with H2 Enterprises LLC in the amount of $133,000 with a contingency of $7,000 for a total amount of $140,000, and amend the fiscal year 2022 solid waste budget accordingly, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
It's motion and a second from Vice Mayor Pierce. And I see that Brooks Webb from Solid Waste, our Public Works Director, is here.
Honorable Mayor, City Council, just a simple service agreement with H2 Enterprises to grind up our green waste this year. In years past, we have, in the winter time, we've rented a large grinder that's come in, and we have used staff and city equipment to grind up the green waste for the compost program. this last winter, we had some staff shortages and some equipment issues, and weren't able to do that. And in turn, we also received almost twice as much green waste as normal last year. Part of that was due to the June 2020 storm event, and that cleanup lingered on through summer. And then, honestly, COVID, with people stuck at home, there was a lot of cleanup going on. And so we experienced a big influx of green waste that came in last year. So we don't have the capacity with staff and our own equipment to do this on our own this year. And so we went out and got some quotes. H2 Enterprises is actually the company that we worked with after the June 2020 event. They came in and did a fantastic job, first removing the green waste from the firework blast site, which was definitely needed. And they did a great job, got in here, got work done quick. So we're kind of happy that they're our low quote on this, because we worked with them really well. So anyway, that's what we're asking for, is just to authorize the contract to get the green waste ground up there so we can start making some more compost.
Thank you for that background report. Council members, any questions for Mr. Webb? Let's see if there's public comment on this item. Seeing none. Back to you, Council, one more time. Questions or comments? Councilmember O'Doherty.
I have a comment. That damage from last year's storm means people are still cutting those branches, because I still see a lot of dead trees or dead branches. So that storm was pretty expensive. Thanks.
You bet. Nothing like a late season storm to really wreck shop with some of the older trees that we have here. Big, heavy, wet snow, all of the above. It's good to have a green waste program for things like that. And it's good that we're able to find a partner. Any other comments, questions? Seeing none, City Clerk, can we have a roll call vote on the item?
Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumbie,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 no's, Your Honor.
Motion carries. That takes us to item number 12, and that's Councilmember O'Doherty.
Just buried it. Better open it a second time. Let's see. Okay. Sorry, I had it right there. I move to approve Resolution 2021-56, supporting the Wyoming Association of Municipalities, WAM, Resolution 2021-02, related to providing Congress and the state legislatures the right to regulate monies raised and spent for political purposes, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Is there a second?
Second.
And a second from Councilmember Schuster. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I raised this because it was passed, if it wasn't unanimous, it was pretty close to it at the Wyoming Association of Municipalities. And I know that there's been a big effort in Laramie to sign such a petition. And I see that Ken Chestick is here. So when you get to public comment on this item, he would like to speak. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Doherty. It's my understanding this was an item that was debated by the WAM membership at the last meeting last month and discussed, and it's certainly an issue that's been in the public discussion for some time. Any other questions or comments for Councilmember O'Doherty at this time? Any general comments or questions about the resolution? Why don't we see if there's some public comment? We know that there is because Mr. Chestick had signed up ahead of time. So I'd like to give Mr. Chestik the floor now to talk to us about this.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, I can't see myself, but I guess you can see me. Thank you for considering this resolution. My name is Ken Chestik. I am the president of a group called Wyoming Promise, which was formed 5 years ago. It's a nonprofit statewide organization working on this issue. 5 years ago, we initiated a petition drive to try and get this on the state ballot as an official ballot initiative. We're trying to get Wyoming to be, I guess now the 22nd state to adopt such a resolution. We're hoping that if we get 38 states to say we're ready to ratify an amendment, that Congress will actually propose it. So we have, in order to get on the ballot, you need 15% of all of the voters from the previous gubernatorial election, statewide and also in 15 different counties. We were able in Albany County, 15% threshold for that year was 2,587 voters. We were able to gather signatures in Albany County of 2,803, so 216 over the minimum. We were one of 5 counties that did reach the minimum of 15%, which if you've ever tried to get a ballot initiative done, you know it's really difficult to do. So Albany County really does want this thing. We all know that dark money is extremely a growing problem as years go on. It's not just a national problem. It doesn't just affect Congress. It affects local state legislative races. I ran for the legislature 6 years ago, and there was a dark money problem in my race. But it's even getting into local city government races. There was a big problem in Gillette a few years ago with dark money interfering with some city council races. So it's a huge problem. And all we're trying to do is get the legislature to add Wyoming to the list. We have tried in the legislature several times to get it passed. We got this resolution adopted by the House Representatives 2 years ago. So there is a lot of support in the legislature. We failed by one vote in the Senate committee. So we believe that if we can start to show the legislature that there's a widespread support for this measure around the state, that maybe that'll be the impetus to get this legislature over the top. The city of Cheyenne and the city of Lander have already adopted this same resolution. The Wyoming Association of Municipalities last month also adopted this resolution, and we're trying to get cities all across the state of Wyoming to adopt this resolution just to show that there is broad bipartisan support for this measure. And so I encourage you to vote in favor of this measure, and I'm happy to answer any questions that any member of City Council might have.
Sorry, frozen pizza?
Go ahead, folks, with any questions for Mr. Chestik. I'll just open it up for you.
Oh, hello.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any questions for Mr. Chesnik? Okay, could I call for a vote, please?
Humby,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver, absent. That's 8 yeses, 0 noes, and 1 absent. Madam Vice Chair.
Thank you,
Thank
City
you.
Clerk. could we move on to item number 13, please? And Councillor Cumby.
Yes, thank you, Vice Mayor. I move that the City Council, the Laramie City Council, approve Resolution 2021-57 supporting COVID-19 vaccination efforts by authorizing contributions up to $25,000 from unencumbered funds for the provision of vaccination incentives and authorize the mayor and clerk.
Second.
That's a second by Councillor Harrington. Who do we have presenting? It looks like we've got Rob Spalding in the room. Manny Gifford from UW.
Honorable Vice Chair, I believe we had planned that Councilperson Cumby might have a few comments. She's been working with us as well, and then we'll take it from there if you're comfortable with that.
Yes.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Just wanted to say that the resurgence of COVID infection is currently a national concern, with a number of under-vaccinated states such as Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Arkansas declaring state health emergencies due to overwhelming demand being placed upon the healthcare system. The Delta variant is far more contagious and is significantly impacting individuals 20 to 49 rather than the older populations that we experienced in the previous variant. Additionally, an increasing number of children who are not yet able to receive vaccination are being impacted and are manifesting serious illness resulting in increased hospitalization. Wyoming rates of COVID infection have gone from an average infection rate of 7.45% on July 19 of this year to 14.9% on August 7. More than 90% of individuals currently hospitalized are unvaccinated. Current public health research indicates there are a number of sociocultural factors related to those who remain unvaccinated. These include the unavailability of time off from work, the need for childcare, lack of transportation, food insecurity, low income, as well as misinformation, all being contributing factors. A broad coalition of community members and agencies have come together to address these barriers to vaccination and to launch a campaign to increase vaccination rates in Albany County to at least 70%. I'm proud to introduce my colleagues with whom I'm working, Jody Guerin, Mandy Gifford, and Father Rob Spalding. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Cumby and Vice Mayor and council members. Appreciate you having us all this evening. My name is Mandy Gifford, and I'm the Executive Administrative Associate in the Office of the President at the University of Wyoming. I've been involved with UW's COVID response since last March, and it's been quite a wild ride. When the vaccines became a reality late last fall, UW reached out to Albany County Public Health and Dr. Jean Elias to engage in conversations about availability, as well as to offer our support and resources to the county. So from those conversations, strong partnerships developed between the county, public health, and Ivinson Memorial Hospital, which is what we're seeing today with this coalition. Together last fall, we coordinated the first large clinics for Albany County. We stood up a COVID hotline and worked tirelessly to implement the Wyoming Department of Health's vaccination plan. In spring of 2021, as the vaccine became readily available to anyone, UW wanted to understand what our vaccine population was. So we made it mandatory that employees and students report their vaccination status. We were at a low percentage and decided to take action and launch an employee vaccination incentive program. The program kicked off April 20th with communications and drawings, and we've seen an increase in full-time benefited employees from 55 to 73%. Our next focus was on students, and that campaign kicked off July 9th. And we've seen an increase of about 5% of students reporting their vaccinations. And just in the first 3.5 weeks of the program, we had 1,000 students report their vaccination status. So in June, Dr. Elias reached out to discuss our incentive program, and we helped organize the Albany County Vaccine Incentive Working Group, AKA the Vaccine Project Team, and representatives that you see before you today. Our first meeting was on June 30th, and we've been meeting twice a week, if not more. We have subgroups that address incentives and marketing, and it's been a lot. But as you can see, this is a fantastic collaboration between lots of different partnerships in Albany County, including the downtown clinic, Main Street, Ivinson, UW, Public Health, lots of folks. So special thanks to everyone for the hard work. And I think at this time, I'll pass it over to my colleague, Jody Guerin, who will brief you on our current project.
Hello, and thank you for having us. First, I want to say thank you for the support that we're receiving from you all. As we started, well, at the Recreation Center, I'll back up just a little. The Recreation Center, when we first were closed down last year and tried to evaluate how we were going to handle this, my staff, worked pretty furiously trying to figure out what would be the best course of actions, and have tried to follow best practices as best we can with our staff and then with the public as well. And early on, it became apparent that trying to get a higher vaccination rate would protect our community. And so we initially thought that when the vaccines were released, if we could hit at least 50%, anticipating that the numbers would continue to climb, that we would feel comfortable going, not masked. Of course, we've stalled out in the mid 40s for the whole population. I think we hit 45% this last week, and that's exciting to us because it's an increase. Though they're small, I think what we've all realized is it's going to take a concerted effort to get those rates to climb. And when we first started talking about what we could do, I think we all came together as this coalition with different perspectives and different experiences and different ideas about what we should do. And so some of us were thinking, well, what we need is, we need to send vaccine teams out to groups in the community. Some of us were thinking we need to market better, more. Some of us were thinking we need to do incentive programs like we were seeing in the broader communities around the country. And what we've realized is that it's going to have to be yes and. We're going to do all of those things. Right now, we are getting ready to launch our incentive project, and we'll talk about that just a little bit more. But just know that this is one piece of a larger project, and the funding that you all are providing to us is going to go towards that larger effort, including the incentive program. So with that, I think I will turn it over to Father Rob.
Thanks, Jody. It has been a delight to be a part of this team representing many, many areas in the city of Laramie. And at first I was wondering about the timing. As morbid as it may sound, as we look at increasing numbers, I don't think there could be better timing for us to unveil this incentive program than we have right now. There does seem to be an increased sense of urgency. The piece that I bring is to remind you of what Jody just said. This isn't a one and done thing, but that there is an educational component to this. There's outreach to underserved communities. especially those who speak Spanish or other languages, trying to deal with the disinformation that's out there. So we're not just simply saying, let's just throw some money at something and hope that it solves a problem. But that incentive is hand in hand with education, with outreach, and even with looking at places where vaccines are distributed. Where's the right place to get the right people involved? And how do we acknowledge the truth that for someone who gets a vaccine, it often involves a day's missing of employment? And I'm sure that Jody's going to address that next, to talk about how we're providing some compensatory reimbursement there, to say we know this is a risk and a struggle, and we want to make sure that you're still able to take care of yourself and your family. So I'll limit my comments tonight and just reserve that I am happy to answer any questions that you might have this evening. And I think we're back to Jody. So I hope you got a chance to get a drink of water and a breath there.
Thank you, Father Rob. I will say, as far as this project, the way it's come together, this is probably one of the coolest projects I've been able to be a part of, which is kind of crazy because it's, pandemic related. But Mandy took the initiative to start getting us all together kind of on the heels of the vaccine clinics that went on countywide. And this is a really dynamic and changing group of people who have skill sets that they are applying very directly to the projects. And I do believe it is like building an airplane in flight. It feels like you're hanging on for dear life sometimes because we're moving so fast. But with the skill sets we've got, we're able to do that pretty well, which is cool. I asked our city clerk, if she would load a few photos up, some things I want to share with you tonight about the bigger picture project. Currently, the incentive plan that we are working on is scheduled to launch. Actually, we're working on launching it this week to some degree. So we put together kind of a big picture plan of gathering together enough funding that we could provide $25 gift cards for people when they go to get their first vaccine. That's at any of the providers. It's our pharmacies and clinics that are listed in town. And once they get that shot, or even before they get it, if they plan to get it, they're eligible to register for the drawings that we're going to be doing. So they'll get a $25 gift certificate. Our intent with that is to provide some support for people who, it might be an offset because they have to take a couple hours off work. It might be money for a babysitter. It might be, needed groceries. But something that enables them to participate in getting that shot. A lot of people who are younger or who are on the lower socioeconomic spectrum, they don't necessarily have the resources that, we might think they have. We might think, well, just go to your doctor. Well, a lot of them don't have a doctor. They may need to just go to the pharmacy. Well, they don't know what the process is when they get to the pharmacy. So part of our goal here is not only to incentivize them, but provide them information and resources. We are also setting up a fund with the United Way to provide some additional funding for stipends, which may help offset time off of work if they get sick, may help offset further child care or other needs that they have. They already had a program that we were able to plug into, so we will be using that existing program and then adding some funding to that. Additionally, people will be able to use our website. It is almost live. If you all would like to check it out, you can check out cityoflaramie.org/vaccine project. That's all one word. And we've got two pieces of information on there today. One is this little icon you see in front of you that allows you to register for the cash drawings. There's a form there that you can fill out. It just asks for some basic contact information. We will be starting the drawings on, let's see, got my calendar here, on the 6th, Monday the 6th of September. And we will be drawing for 5 weeks, $1,000. When a person wins, they'll have a week, essentially, to come in and collect their prize. They'll contact the public health office, come in and collect their prize, and they have to prove at that point that they're fully vaccinated. So hopefully this provides a little bit of a lead time for people to know that if you're considering getting vaccinated, Do it now so that you have enough time to get in on all of the drawings. There'll be 5 $1,000 cash drawings, and then our final drawing will be the sixth one. It'll be a grand prize drawing of $2,500 cash, and then there will also be some other grand prizes that have been put together by our business community, offering, football tickets and use of Airbnb for, kind of a little getaway, or offering for family if they'd like to come into town. And Councilor Cumby and Councilor O'Dougherty are working with our Main Street director to gather up some of those grand prize drawings, which will be listed on our website here shortly. We also have the rules of the vaccine project, or the raffles listed on the website. So those two pieces are in there already. We will also be listing the locations that people can go to get their vaccines, and other information. 211, the phone number, sort of like our 911 phone number. 211 is a phone number that people can call to find out what other resources might be available for getting their shots. We are working on projects to provide some transportation and, as I said, some other stipends. And if you call that phone number, tell them where you are and what you need, they will help put you in touch with the resources that you're in need of. One of the things that we're finding is that nationally, and we presume that there is some local carryover, a lot of the people who are still open to being vaccinated, and to be clear, that is the population we are targeting. We understand that there are people who, for a variety of reasons, are not planning to get vaccinated, and we are not trying to convince them that they should. If they decide to come to that decision, that would be awesome. But we are really seeking the population of people who maybe haven't gotten it because it wasn't easy or convenient, or they didn't have time, they didn't think maybe it was completely necessary, and help them make the decision to go ahead and get vaccinated and protect themselves and their family. So they'll be able to call that 211 number to get additional information and resources, really. And I think that's all I have to say for the moment, and then I'll turn it back over to Mandy.
Thank you, Jody. So as you just heard, we're reaching far and wide to address barriers that some of our residents might have to getting the vaccine, such as missing work, childcare needs, food security, and others. Our communication and marketing plan is also very comprehensive. We have a You Call the Shots campaign that we'll be launching hopefully at the end of this week. Things that we're including over the next a couple of months, and not only include the website where everyone will be directed to register for the prizes and the incentive program, but we will have QR codes on posters. We'll have social media posts with multiple partners. We'll have a video ad that we're hoping to get up in the movie theater. And as Jody mentioned, we are working with local providers and getting those gift cards out and making sure that they have the doses on hand, and that we're helping out our partners that way. So some of the social media posts and the partners that are working on our communication campaign include Ivinson. They've been a huge help with helping to design the marketing campaign and the plan, coming up with the posters and the graphics and lining out when we should release things. They're also coordinating some of the releases on Facebook, on newsletters, communications that we can all do as partners to our internal colleagues to let them know what's going on. But all of these posts, we've kind of lined out that it will be Ivinson and the Downtown Main Street Alliance, the City of Laramie, Public Health, UW, all of our partners will be blasting information however we can. And so just another example of the coordinated effort that we will have for this campaign. Jody and Rob, turn it back over to you.
Well, I'll lead off one other thing I wanted to share with you. When we get done tonight, we will be meeting with the county commissioners. They're passing essentially a sister resolution requesting the authorization to use up to $25,000 as well. My understanding is also Pete Gosar, who's the head of the downtown clinic and one of our commissioners, is going to be approaching the hospital as well to see what kind of resources they might be able to put towards the project in addition to the staff and the marketing assistance that they've already provided. I think it's important to know. Oh, and then of course Albany County Public Health also is providing our initial round of funding for gift cards. We are committed to purchasing 750 gift cards. And we hope to have a variety of those things. We hope to have Visa cards that are broadly usable, as well as Main Street is going to be providing some of those gift cards. But we want people to have the resources they need and the things that just help get them over the hump, whatever that might be. So I think it's important to know that there's going to be funding that's going to be matching the cities. It's not going to be just from the city. And in terms of the funding of this whole project, as you look at it and think, okay, well, $5,000 plus $2,500 plus all the gift cards, that doesn't add up to X number of dollars. Part of what I want you to have an understanding of is the big picture of this is not going to be done when our drawings are over. We have work to be done, and we're not entirely certain where the pandemic ends, where the impacts of it end. We hope sooner than later. That's part of the reason that we're all committed to this. I think we all have a strong desire to get back to some kind of business as usual. I know at the Recreation Center, we've been hit numerous times with staff shortages for a variety of reasons. And the impacts of COVID are not just people getting sick. They are far and wide. We're seeing a lot of staff shortages where people are, there's a lot of traumatic stress. It's going to be post at some point, but at the moment it is traumatic stress disorder out in the wider public. And it's for all kinds of reasons, all kinds of uncertainty that people have, whether it's, what they're going to be doing for school or, what's going to be required at work. But the sooner we can get past this of our own choices, I think the better. And so that's really what we're committed to doing in whatever way that we can be supportive of the community. And with that, I'll turn it over to Father Rob for any other comments.
I think we're not naive in thinking that this is going to be accepted by everyone. We thought long and hard about potential negativity and people wondering, why are you spending tax dollars on this? We feel confident, although it's difficult to quantify data at this point, that the expenditure of this money is actually a net benefit to Albany County and to the city of Laramie. And that's part of the messaging. We don't want to do anything that guilts or shames, but simply invites and makes available an opportunity for us to be an even better city than we are today. And I do believe this is not just a 2-month journey, but I think the team who has been assembled is committed to the long haul, to trying to care for the health of the people of Laramie.
With that, I think we'd answer any questions.
So council members, do we have any questions? And may I just start out by just saying a big, big thank you and much appreciation to all your efforts. So council members, do we have Councilor Harrington?
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I have just one question. Father Rob, you spoke earlier about the need for reaching a diverse cross-section of the community. I'm curious if this website and all the information will also be available in Spanish. I feel like that would be an easy win.
So we are working to translate through my office. We have an administrative assistant, fully bilingual, but also been in touch with Corona Village and other places, even about holding a vaccine clinic at a place that would be trusted. One of the biggest challenges you probably are aware of in Laramie, we don't have any provider who is a native Latino. And that's a pretty significant part in winning trust and convincing. So we are looking for not only the messaging in the appropriate language, but also the person to deliver that. But I really appreciate your question, Brian, and we're doing our best with that.
That's great to hear. And I share that concern with you. And I think, Vice Mayor, if I can, just one quick comment at the end. I think I have sent several, for lack of a better word, ideas I had, which I'm sure is what you all love, to Dr. Elias. And every time, and I think it's apparent in what you've all presented this evening, but every time I've sent something, it's been met with, obviously a thank you, but also that you are all on it and have thought to sort of that deeper level about it already. And I for me, that builds a lot of confidence in the work that you all are doing. And, you know, while I hope that this effort and this expenditure from our unencumbered funds will be enough, while the optimist in me says, sure, this is it, I'm certainly favorable to a continued relationship if necessary, just for what it's worth. Thank you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. How about if we go to the public? I don't currently see any hands raised.
Vice Mayor, I had a comment.
Oh, sorry, Councilor O'Doherty.
Yeah, I just want to point out that there was some misinformation in the boomerang in a letter to the editor by a friend of mine who is good in music performance, but not so good in math and understanding epidemiology. And also there was non-factual stuff about saying the university was requiring swabs twice a week. That's not the case. It was spit tests. So I just think it's really unfortunate that this is spread out there. I would like for Councilor Cumby to explain the difference maybe, well, actually, did she disappear? Yeah, there's between infection rate. So it's twice as transmissible. This new virus is twice as transmissible as the previous. The paper indicates that there's like 11% chance of getting COVID. No, it means if you live in Albany County, it's actually up to 12% of the people have been infected already. So can you just explain with that infection rate, what that means? It's not a fixed number, it's a rate. Could we ask Councilor Cumby to explain that, or somebody else that likes epidemiology? Thank you.
The number that I gave is a rate based on numbers per 100,000. And so that figure came from our state public health website. And that is one of the ways that they are tracking is rate of infection, and the rate extrapolates to per 100,000.
Vice Mayor,
yes.
May I
Go ahead,
follow?
Councilor.
What's important is that our viral loads, if we have this virus, are about twice what they were before. So you're much more likely to infect people. You're twice as likely. So even if you're asymptomatic, you could infect babies. So that's why it's so important to me that I'm willing to spend my own money and do whatever I can, pay people on the street corner to get a vaccine. Thank you.
And you bring up a good point, Councilor O'Doherty, whereas the previous version that we dealt with, you would expect one person would infect 2.5 to 3 individuals. So then the extrapolation goes, one person infects 3, the 3 infect 9, the 9 infect 81. But with this, they are now looking at that the Delta, one person, the viral load is so high, they will infect an average of 7 to 9 individuals. So very quickly, you extrapolate up into the thousands. So one person can infect 8, and then 8 would go to 64, and so it very quickly can spread. And the other point that's been brought out is that the vaccine gives us systemic immunity, a systemic resistance. But it is possible for vaccinated individuals to harbor the virus in the nasal passages, and because it is so virulent and contagious, to begin to spread that without even showing symptoms of being ill.
Thank you. Do we have any other council members wanting to make a comment or have a question? Okay, I don't see any, nor do I see any hands raised in our attendees. So again, a big thanks, and have fun at the county commissioner meeting after this. You guys are beyond civic duty dedicated, so thank you. And how about if we just go to a vote?
Cumbie,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver, absent. That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Can we move on to item number 14? And that happens to be Counselor Schuster.
Thank you very much. The title is Submission of an FFA Airport Improvement Program, AIP Grant Agreement for the Laramie Regional Airport to update the airport master plan. I ask that the council approve the submission of the grant agreement before the FFA Airport Improvement Program, AIP, by the Laramie Regional Airport in the amount of $794,012 to update the airport master plan and authorize the mayor and city attorney to sign.
Second.
That was seconded by Counselor Harrington. I see we have City Clerk Bartholomew on here for comments.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Unfortunately, Amy Terrell could not join us tonight, but we did try to give a little bit of background information on your cover sheet. The grant they're requesting is for $794,012, and it is to update the airport master plan. So with that, if the council has any questions, I'd be happy to answer on these FFA improvement grants. We are requested to approve that as well as the county commissioners, since we are a joint powers board.
Great, thank you, City Clerk. Do we have any questions by council on this item? I don't see any hands raised. And I don't see any hands raised in our attendees from the public. So, does anybody have any comments? Seeing none, let's just go ahead and go to the vote.
Somerville,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumbie,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver, absent. That's 8 yeses, 0 nos, and 1 absent, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Let's move to item number 15, and that is Counselor Harrington.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. I move to approve original ordinance number 2030 on first reading, vacating approximately a 102,500 square foot area of right-of-way, including a portion of Lewis Street, 11th Street, 12th Street, and the alley within an adjacent block and adjacent to Block 2, University Place Edition, as recommended by the Planning Commission based on findings of fact and conclusions of law.
Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Counselor Cumbie. Thank you. How about City Planning Manager, Mr. Teeny? He's available. Great. Take it away, Derek.
Vice Mayor and Council, thank you. This is the first reading of 3 readings related to vacation of rights of way. that are generally located kind of north of campus. What this vacation ordinance would allow for is for the city to turn over right-of-way that includes 11th Street, a portion of 12th Street, Lewis Street, and an alleyway that's kind of located between 12th and 13th Street. And in your packet, there's multiple figures kind of throughout that show the area that would be vacated. This vacation is kind of planned vacation through that we've seen a few small segments occur prior to this over the years, and is more specifically related to an MOU that was completed by the city, between the city and the university, that kind of outlines essentially all the requirements associated with vacating these streets and what's required by the university in terms of upgrades to utilities, water lines, sewer lines, streets, in the area of like Bradley, 15th, Lewis Street, in order to accommodate us relinquishing the right-of-way. The MOU is included in your packet if you want to go through that in a little bit more detail. As it's noted in the staff report, excuse me, that was provided to Planning Commission, as well as it's outlined in the ordinance that actually creates the vacation. Often with vacations, we receive compensation as the government is providing land and giving land back to some private entity. In the MOU that was completed by the city, we note that there's about $1.6 million in valuation and utility lines being constructed in this area that provide for additional service to area residents based upon the infrastructure that already exists within the area, but also will help serve the future development of the university on this side of the site. Kind of with that, one thing that I would note is this is only the first reading. With vacations, they do go through the full ordinance process. So there is 3 readings. There is also a public hearing that'll be held. With the motion that you have presented to you, I am going to be asking for council to potentially amend that so that we can postpone the second reading and public hearing to the September 21st, 2021 meeting. In speaking with Sam Farstead with the University of Wyoming, we are trying to coordinate the completion of this vacation with the actual completion of the work associated with the MOU. And I can let Sam speak a little bit more to this if he would like, but you know, with current construction being difficult, supplies being difficult, timeline kind of keeps changing and adjusting. And so we're going to kind of do this first reading, postpone till September 21st for second reading and public hearing, and then kind of bring the third reading forward as we near completion of this project. Because per the MOU, the full project must be completed and all the conditions of the MOU must be met before we can vacate the street. And so with that, I think, you know, I would be happy to take any questions. As I mentioned, Sam Farstead with the University of Wyoming is also on this call and in this meeting and could answer questions as well.
Thank you. We've got the mayor back. So, Mayor, we are on item number 15. We just finished up with our planning manager, Teeny's comments, and ready either to hear from our pal Sam Farstead or possibly council members, and I'll leave that up to you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. And I sent you all an email. I apologize. I had to reset my router a couple of times. Finally, I was able to get back. I did hear the majority of that presentation. And like the Vice Mayor, it's fun to see Sam Farstead, I think.
Oh, it's me, Honorable Mayor. If I may,
yeah.
Honorable Vice Mayor Pierce, Honorable Mayor Weaver, great to see everybody here. I don't even know why Derek invites me to these meetings. He does such a thorough job explaining everything. I'm kind of just here as an accessory to muddle matters up a little bit, but I'm glad to answer any questions. he did an excellent summary of it. We're trying to quarterback this a little bit, just as he indicated. Just skilled craft utility and road work is a challenge in Laramie, Wyoming. It's particularly challenging right now, and so our task to get these utilities in the ground and honor our obligations of the MOU, and to time that in a way that we're going to totally line up with the third reading of this vacation. I'm a blind optimist, but even I'm saying that's going to be a challenge to do. So we're going to kind of postpone for second reading, look at where we're at in the process, bunch of water line, bunch of sewer line of mutual benefit to the city and the U, and then put that third reading in front of everybody when it's appropriate and logical. So I'm not going to contribute anything else. Great to see everybody, and would invite any questions that anybody has.
Appreciate that, Sam. We do have some questions coming. Councilmember O'Doherty.
Hi, Mr. Farstead, it's already hard for people with mobility issues to get onto campus, especially on that side. So I'm really, I'm going to vote for this because all the people have done the work with the MOU and all that, but I'm really concerned that there's no place to drop somebody off who's trying to get around on a wheelchair. It's already hard to do as it is. So are you going to address mobility for students and visitors and access to A&S, access to the Geology Museum? They've been pretty much shut off for a long time. So that's a big concern of mine. Thank you.
Councilor O'Doherty, through you, Honorable Mayor, if I may, I really appreciate the question, and I'm happy to report that there's been a lot of thoughtful consideration in the design of this to address that specifically. So I can't share my screen, I don't think Nancy's nice enough to let me do that. But part of the reason, the rationale and the vacation of 11th Street and 12th Street are specific to bus and access mobility, right? So we're going to have a new bus stop, UW Transit route on Bradley and 12th by the new satellite energy plant. And the demolition and the landscape master planning work that's going to take place in 12th Street, and then the work that we're doing in the corridor between the engineering building and the agriculture building currently, major renovation process, but that relationship is such that you'll have a bus drop off there, and you'll have a true defined pedestrian only ADA route from Bradley Street into Prexy's pasture. Long term, we're going to have two of those. One will feed from 11th Street as well. We're also having a new bus stop that's going in north of the new Science Initiative building. And so that, in addition to the pedestrian corridor, I don't want to say it's deceiving, but it's tough to grasp the logistics in that, in the sense that we have planned ADA drop-off routes. We've increased the number of actual ADA parking spots in that Lewis Street corridor through this development master plan. Almost by double, which I think is an asset to everybody. So your concerns have been heard and will be put into play. It's going to be, I think, a true asset when we're done with the development in that North Lewis Street corridor there. And this vacation process is really the first step, the catalyst in putting that all into place. I genuinely appreciate your concern.
All right. Councilmember Schuster.
Thank you. I know that some of this has to do with Lewis Street, and I've had some people talk to me concerned about being able to drop off their kids at the lab school. Is Lewis going to continue for half a block to the entrance to the parking lot to the lab school, or is something else going to happen? Or just curious about that, because I've been asked about that by several people.
Councilor Schuster, through you, Honorable Mayor. Fantastic question. So this specific vacation, we're calling this phase one of a two-part vacation. The MOU and then the corresponding amendment to that shows that we're only going to, in Lewis Street specifically, we're only going to the west side of 13th Street. And so when this vacation process is done through 3 readings, you're still going to have access on 13th Street, 14th Street, and 15th Street to get in that section, that 2-block section of Lewis Street that allows for drop-off and pickup of students at the lab school. that's a complicated, I guess, corridor in terms of that student population, and there's a lot of planning going into that. I think has been for some time and will continue to address specifically that. But in the midterm, we've got it covered. Absolutely. Councilor Schuster, was that sufficient answer for you there? I can add more detail.
Yes, it is. I'm going to text them right now, the people that told me.
Good. Any other questions for Mr. Farstad or Mr. Tini? Councilmember Gabriel, go ahead.
Thanks, Mayor. Hi, Sam. I'm over in that area 5 days a week, and I've been asked by several people about the repaving of Bradley Street in particular with all the construction. And I think I know the answer, but I just wanted to hear it from you about, most of it's just been kind of laid over with some asphalt right now to kind of get by. Are the streets going to be put back into a top-notch shape once all the construction is done?
Councilor Gabriel, great question through you, Honorable Mayor. So the short answer is, Councilor Gabriel, is absolutely yes. We've got, I'm not going to bore everybody with all the details, but we have another section of 8-inch water line we're doing in between 13th and 14th Street. We just added a section per the 2014 MOU, we owed a section of 8-inch water line from 14th to 15th Street in Bradley right there. Those are both going in. That last section's going in right now. We have some sewer line work to do on 13th Street in between Lewis and Bradley. And so the idea is, and this is through some careful coordination with the city's Public Works Department and engineering group, great partners on this whole project. The idea is that we want to get all the utilities in the ground, and we want to get everything backfilled and prepped with road base. And we want to do a single lift. We're just a single mobilization, double lift of asphalt over there. So we don't have a bunch of patches and stripes and a bunch of stuff that you see. It happens all over town for various reasons, but we want this to be a nice assembly, uniform application, particularly on that Bradley Street corridor. So, and the good news is, with our asphalt season in Laramie, we have about 6 weeks to get that done. So I think that should be enough time. Is that sufficient, Councilor Gabriel? Does that get you what you need?
Thanks, Sam.
Okay.
You bet.
Construction week. Construction month. Anybody else? Or Mr. Tini or Mr. Farstad? Sam, it's a good thing you're here after all, so we could grill you.
Happy to talk about construction. I think that's my job. So I appreciate everybody's sense of humor. If you're in the north part of campus or any requirement to get anywhere off of 15th Street this summer, you have to have a lot of patience and a pretty good sense of humor, I think.
Yeah, and I appreciate those questions about the lab school, because that's already exciting when things are optimal up there, getting all the students in and out of that back parking lot onto Lewis. I don't see a lot of other hands popping up, and I appreciate Mr. Tini's breakdown. So we're going to have a little bit of a delay in this, and we'll be looking at it again in a month. Is that right, Mr. Tini?
Mayor, Council, yeah, the recommendation would be to postpone second reading and public hearing to the September 21st meeting.
I appreciate that.
Yep.
Point of procedure, Vice Mayor, did we have the secondary motion yet, or do we still need to do that?
We need to do that.
Okay. I'll go to public comment on the item in general quickly and see if there is any. And then we'll come back and have the motion for postponement as recommended. Public comment on the item. Seeing none. Back to the council. Councilmember Gabriel.
I was just wondering if I could ask Sam a question about 15th Street.
I think that's probably not germane to
If
the
it's appropriate
specific
or
item.
not.
I think it's probably a secondary item that would have its own whole amount of time that it would take. So I'm going to say that's probably not germane to this item, although I appreciate the desire to ask that question.
I'll find Sam on his bike another time.
Councilor Gabriel, I appreciate your understanding with that topic. And tackle him and see what he has to say about it and report back to the council as soon as possible. Council members, are we ready for the second motion? Are there any more comments or questions? Okay. See nods of agreement. So let's go back to the initial motion maker, I think, probably for clearing this one up, which is Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I would move that we postpone the second reading of original ordinance number 2030 until our September 21st meeting.
Second.
Second. Second from, it was close, but we'll call it Councilmember Cumby. And we've already heard a great deal of explanation as to why the motion is being recommended, but I will give you another opportunity for anything else on that. I'm going to call on Councilmember Somerville with her hand raised on Zoom.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a clarifying question. Is it the second reading and the public hearing that's being postponed? Or just the second reading?
It's a good question. Right? It's a good question. Councilmember Harrington, was your motion for the 2 or the 1?
Mr. Mayor, it was simply for the second reading, but I would consider that a friendly amendment to the amendment if Councilor Somerville was urging me that direction.
Thank you, Councilor Harrington.
A point very well made indeed. Thank you both. Council members, I see Mr. Cheney has given us a thumbs up that that's perfectly appropriate to include in the motion and probably was what we intended. Yes? All right. Well, council members, without further discussion, and I apologize for raising a point of procedure earlier. Technically, the chair really isn't supposed to do that, but I don't know if we've made the motion yet to postpone. City Clerk, can we have, council members and City Clerk, please excuse me. I'll go to public comment on the postponement. Seeing none, I'll close public comment on the postponement motion and go to the City Clerk for a roll call.
Cumby.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Somerville.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
And that motion carries. Council members, I greatly appreciate your patience and your flexibility in these meetings, especially with my gaffe-prone process. Let's go to the next item, which is number 16.
Mayor?
Yes.
We still have the main motion. That was just the amendment.
I see. Let's now have a roll call vote on the motion as amended.
Somerville.
Yes.
Schuster.
Yes.
Schmeckel.
Yes.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Harrington.
Yes.
Gabriel.
Yes.
Cumby.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 noes, Your Honor.
All right. That motion carries. And once again, your patience is appreciated. Sam, have a good one. We'll see you next time. Mr. Cheney, thank you very much. All right. At the risk of further error, I think we're now to the next item in the agenda, item number 16, which I'd like to turn over to the Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. I move to approve Resolution 2021-55, amending council rules of procedure as reflected in Attachment A regarding web conferencing, dollar amount allowed for items on consent agenda, public comment periods, motion definitions, council working with staff, meeting end times, and authorize the mayor and city clerk to sign.
Second.
You've had a motion and a second from, I think that was Councilmember Somerville. And council, let's turn it back over to the Vice Mayor for a little bit of background on it, although I think we're relatively familiar with it. Vice Mayor?
Yeah, let's see, I don't really have much to add other than done this during a work session and then turned it back to city clerk, and I'm assuming our city attorney to kind of review and put all our thoughts down on paper. And when I reviewed, they seemed like, as I recalled the meeting, just fine. So I don't really have any comments
Okay.
other than that. Thanks.
No, thank you. Appreciate that. All right, let's turn it over to council members for general discussion. I've got hands coming up. I'll go in order. First two speakers will be Councilmember O'Doherty, followed by Councilmember Gabriel. Councilmember O'Doherty, and then I'll go to the next hand up.
I just want to make an amendment so that Rule 4 on page 6, Item 8, is just public comment, that we don't change that to on non-agenda items, because I think people could comment about anything. I don't think we need to specify. Thank you. So.
Second, is there a second for that motion?
Second.
Second, from Councilmember Schuster. Let's have some discussion on this suggestion. Going around for discussion. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, can Councilor Doherty remind me what page she's on?
Page 6 under Rule 4, Order of Business, A, and the item number is going to become number 8 if we pass this, but then on 9 non-agenda items was added to it. I'd like to omit that. So it's simply public comment.
Discussion. Councilmember Somerville, discussion on the amendment.
Thank you, Mayor. Just a question for Councilor O'Doherty. So if we move it to public comment, would that allow people to make comment again on items that were previously passed that evening on the agenda? Was that the intent?
Councilmember O'Doherty.
Oh, yeah, somebody might want to tell us that we really messed up, and we can hear that, right? Because it might influence us for the second reading and things like that. So yeah, I think it should just be open public comment. Thank you.
Discussion, further discussion. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I think if we approve this, we're going to have to go down in the document and find a few other places to make those changes. But I assume we can just title those like Scribner's and have our city clerk make those changes throughout. Would that be okay? Or do we have to find each spot in the document?
City clerk.
Mayor, if we could amend the amendment to include any relevant references to that public comment period throughout the rest of the rules of procedure, I think that would allow me to be able to make those changes.
I'd like to amend my amendment so that it says that the last public comment period is simply public comment, and anywhere else in the document that refers to that, have it be consistent with that. Thank you.
Further discussion. Without objection, I'd like to make a comment. I don't support this amendment for one simple reason. which is that it provides possibly a third opportunity, given that we have the ability as a council to allow people to speak twice or even three, or frankly, as many times as we feel is necessary on agenda items as they come up. I'm not certain why we would then provide an opportunity for further comments about process or the agenda item itself on the time slot that we've reserved for non-agenda items. And this would be a departure from procedure as established from my perspective for many, many years. And I don't see the need for it, nor have I heard a request for it. And I'm just not certain why we would expand on opportunities to comment on agenda items when we already take great care to provide those opportunities for speaking. That's my perspective. And from that perspective, I don't believe I'll be supporting it. Councilmember O'Doherty, perhaps you can change my mind.
No, you convinced me that because we asked the public for comment on every agenda item and every amendment to every agenda item, it's probably overkill. So I'm going to vote against my amendment.
The chair would provide the council member an opportunity to withdraw the amendment. Provided
I'm happy to withdraw my amendment.
Depends on whether or not the second agrees.
That's fine.
Okay, thank you both, council members. I am absolutely shocked at my ability to convince people to go a different way, but I truly do believe that we provide adequate opportunity on agenda items. Further discussion on the main motion. Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And
Councilmember Harrington, I apologize. Will you yield to Councilmember Gabriel, who was on the speaking list? And I apologize to you both. Thank you, Councilmember Harrington. I apologize. Councilmember Gabriel, you have the floor.
Thanks, Mayor. I will not support this unless we reinstate public comment at the beginning. I think it's been a good process for us. I don't think we need to have the public wait until the end of the meeting for public comment on non-agenda items. I don't know what we're trying to fix. I think 30 minutes before the meeting is something that we've established. It hasn't been. We had a lot of comment last summer, so be it. That's what we're here for, to hear from the public. And so unless that is moved to our regular, or unless it's established as it is right now, I will not support the motion. Also, it was brought up by Mr. Glass through an email that the public can make comments at the beginning to perhaps move a consent agenda item to the regular agenda. That's through public comment at the beginning. So I think that's important as well, to establish that for the public. So I'm hoping other council members will agree. As a county commissioner for 20 years, we always started out with public comment, and it worked very well. Thanks.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. And again, I'm sorry that I skipped over you in the order of speakers. Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Curious what the rationale for removing telephone participation is. I can understand the addition of web conferencing, but in an instance that occurred this evening, even, Mr. Mayor, where a router failed, you might have joined our meeting with your phone to continue presiding over this meeting, which would no longer be permitted under these revisions. So I'm curious about that. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you for those questions, Councilmember Harrington. I saw the city clerk raised her hand. So city clerk.
Thank you, Mayor. Just bring some information forward for that, Councillor Harrington. It was a request of council members to take out that wording, and I'll tell you why. In my estimation, my understanding of that is because we have staff members and council that have, and the public that have become very accustomed to Zoom meetings, to being able to participate through Zoom. So we've gotten a lot of feedback that they'd like to continue having that option. Zoom allows you to participate via phone, as well as through internet connection. So the striking out of the telephone is not to say that they can't participate with their phone via the Zoom meeting, but what it is it eliminates the need to maintain the telephone system in chambers for those counselors that have been on council for quite some time previous to COVID, and having Zoom as an option. We used to have you dial in to a telephone conference in chambers, and we actually have better audio feed if you participate via Zoom. So that was the rationale. I hope that helps.
Mr. Mayor, if I could.
Yeah, Councilmember Harrington.
City Clerk, that does help an awful lot. And one of the reasons I was asking specifically is I was concerned that the use of the term web conferencing would imply that, or the removal, I guess, more specifically of the word telephone, would exclude the opportunity to call in on a web conference using your telephone, and also could prohibit council members from turning their cameras off or something of the sort. I think it could end up in some weird gray area, but if that's all clear to everyone on the council, I'm going to I had an amendment to just reinstate all of that prepared. But if that's all clear to everyone else that you are still able to call in just through a different process, then I'm going to just leave it in the dark and no one will ever have to hear it. Thanks.
Well, Councilmember Harrington, I think we have some further discussion. Councilmember Schuster, would you mind if I go to the city clerk? Because it looks like she wanted to make a clarifying point, and then I'll call on you. City clerk?
Mayor, thank you. I was just going to say I'm impartial to whether the council chooses to amend that or not.
And I have a follow-up question about this, but it's Councilmember Schuster's turn to speak.
I would like to do Councilor Gabriel's request, and I'd like to reinstate on page 5. I thought it was 5. I guess I probably missed it, but I'm on here.
It's 6.
Page 6. Maybe my computer is doing this to me. And reinstate that public comment on non-agenda items be reinstated as item number 4 on the procedure, and renumber everything else to put it back the way it is right now.
Second.
Members, there's been a motion and a second. Council members, I think that if you want to retain the rules and procedures as they are now, I'm not certain that an amendment was necessary. You could simply vote against that. But then it also occurs to me members may approve some of the other changes, but not that specific change. So we've had a motion and a second on this. Further discussion. We've heard some from Councilor Gabriel on this topic. Further discussion. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I'm going to vote for the amendment, but I want to point out that the same individual that reminded us they want to comment about consent agenda items contacted us through email. Our phone numbers are published. If people are reading the consent agenda and something gives them an issue, they are free to contact us. So, so that information is still getting through. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Doherty. Other comments? Vice Mayor Pierce, and then I'll go to you, Councilor Cumbie. Vice Mayor.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I'm not going to support this, although I certainly understand the sentiment of those that are in support of this. I think I hearken back to our friend and former council member Hansen, who was for many years on this council, and was not at all opposed to public comment on any item, but felt that our business meetings are the intent to do the business of the city, and he felt like having those public comments at the end of the meeting was by far a better spot for those, and I happen to agree with him. And I just feel like we've also added public comments again in our work session, and many of our meetings run late, and adding an additional 30 minutes puts us, or at least me, who happens to be an early riser, kind of late into the evening for executive sessions and other meetings. So that's all I have to say on that.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Councilmember Cumby, and then I'll go to Councilmember Somerville. Councilmember Cumby.
Yes. And it is for that reason that I support the amendment, because I think that having people wait until the end of our sometimes very long meetings would discourage public participation. So I'm going to support the amendment.
Councilmember Somerville.
Thank you, Mayor. I struggle to support the amendment, not because I want to cut off public comment on consent items, but I do share some of the concerns about getting the business of the council done that's been published in a timely fashion. I would be more comfortable adding a specific item on the agenda for public comment on any consent items prior to setting the agenda. I think that would be a better way to go, and leave general public comment at the end.
A suggestion from Councilmember Somerville. Other discussion on this item? Councilmember Schmeckel.
Thank you, Mayor. I guess I'm curious if there's any record or indication about how many times the meeting has lasted so late that we've had to postpone agenda items to the next meeting, in at least recent memory, if there's any kind of sense about how frequently that happens.
It's an excellent question, Councilmember Schmeckel. I don't know that we have anything more than an anecdote to share with you this evening. I don't know that the city clerk has tracked that for us. By way of trying to forward the discussion so that folks are informed, I can tell you it has happened, and it hasn't been a rarity. It depends on the length of time generally that regular agenda items take. However, there have been times that, and I'll go to you next, Councilmember Schuster, there have been times when we have had both considerable public comment filling the half-hour time slot, and then considerable public comment on agenda items. And it's when we find ourselves in that situation, often, Councilmember Schmeckel, that items end up being postponed, often in a somewhat hurried fashion during the course of the meeting. Some items are postponed so that we can get to other items. And we've also had times where we've had to cancel executive sessions because we just ran into the late hour, and it's sometimes been felt that items in executive session that require our attention and focus have to be moved because we spend our mental budget on items earlier in the evening through listening to public comment as well as our own discussion. I don't know if that helps you, but that's a little bit of context. I can't give you a hard, reliable number on how many times that's happened, but Councilmember, I'll tell you, it has not been rare. Councilmember Schuster, thank you for waiting.
Thank you. Just trying to answer that one a little bit. It's not the amount of items on an agenda. We've had meetings that have lasted less than an hour, and we've had meetings that last 6 hours. It depends if we have a controversial item on there, is what it has always been. Because a typical item, I feel, lasts 15 to 20 minutes. And we've had it, one night, I remember the first item on the agenda, which was very controversial, lasted an hour and 50 minutes. So just basically almost 2 hours on one item. So to try to judge this as, does this happen very often? I'd say probably about 4 times in the last year. So we usually have 2 meetings a month, so 26 meetings, and it happened 4 times. That'd be an approximate guess. Don't know if that helps.
It does.
Councilmember Schmeichel? Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yeah, you bet. So this is a hard one for a new council member. A lot of background and context. Councilmember O'Doherty.
So if we make this change, if we keep it 30 minutes at the beginning, are we keeping the 30 minutes at the end and then adding 30 minutes on the work session? Because then we need another amendment, but we can bring that up later.
My understanding is that we haven't addressed the work session public comment periods, of which there is one at the beginning and the end, just yet. Councilmember O'Doherty, I think this amendment, if I'm clear, is only for the business meetings, what we've come to call the business meetings, which when we say that, what we mean is meetings on where we vote on items. So we haven't even touched on the work session topic. Other comments? City Clerk.
Mayor, just a quick point of information. I think this kind of maybe goes along with what Councilor O'Doherty was referencing, but in 402A3, there was a change that's also associated with this section that we're referring to right now.
And we're considering these simultaneously?
The changes kind of go together. We can vote on them separately, but
I have no preference, City Clerk. I'm just not certain what our order is, if we're voting on them simultaneously or not, because I'm not sure that was entirely made clear in the original motion. But if there isn't objection to it, why don't we consider that is what we're doing? I saw a hand from Councilmember O'Doherty.
When we discussed this, we moved a 30-minute session from the regular meetings. Well, this is why it's in there, to the work session. And then we added a place for public comment at the end of each work session agenda item. So we've overall added more public comment period with the way this is written. So if we go back to the original 30 minutes at the beginning, 30 minutes at the end, we're adding a couple hours. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember O'Doherty. Other discussion? Well, I'm going to have to put in another nickel on this, folks. When I first joined the City Council, first year I served, 2013, the council had chosen to place public comment on non-agenda items at the end of the meeting at that time. And 2 of our longer-serving council members who are no longer with us, when we discussed placement of non-agenda items, touched on some of the points that you've all already heard touched on by the Vice Mayor and other council members, which is that there is an issue, in my opinion, about time and time management. But as you also heard, it really depends on the content and the rest of the agenda as well. I will say that public comment period at the end of the meeting was in place from 2013 until 2019, at least, when this council, or the previous council, chose to change it and add the public comment back to the beginning. So my point with all this is this has switched back and forth periodically over the years, depending on the council's wishes and feelings about it. There has not been a long-term institutional commitment from the city council to keeping these times one way or the other. And some of the council members that are no longer here, when they spoke to this, well, you've already, as I said, you've already heard some of those points. But one you didn't hear that former mayor and council member Shumway illustrated, as well as former council member Hansen, is that those meetings in which public comment is taken at the beginning can set the tone for the meeting. And I've been at meetings in the last few years with some of you where that's definitely been the case. I don't think it's been particularly helpful. I understand the arguments for keeping it there. I also think that there might be a solution that's been offered by Councilmember Somerville about the consent agenda issue, although in my opinion, my singular, by myself, me, myself, just me opinion is I cannot recall a single time when someone has said they wanted something moved from the consent agenda when they've made their public comment at the beginning. Maybe that's happened. I can't remember. It certainly hasn't happened very much where people have come in to express concern. Typically that concern has been expressed to us well prior to the beginning of the voting meeting. I'm pretty agnostic about this. There are things I like about providing many public comment opportunities, but I think we do that. Every agenda item, public hearings, at the beginning, at the end of both regular meetings and work sessions. Now we've added public comment periods at the end of work session topics, which is not something that we had done in the past. That was another departure. Ward meetings, meetings about special projects, many opportunities for public comment, which is appropriate. I would say that we offer more than any other elected body that I'm familiar with. It's not a bad thing, but it does take time. Let's see if there's any public comment on this issue, then we'll come back for any further council comments and thoughts. Council members, are you all right with public comment being opened towards the topic in general and amendments in specific at this time? To allow comments to be made on any of those topics? Okay. All right. We have a hand raised in our attendees. It's Mr. Glass. Mr. Glass, you've got the floor.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and members of council. Yes, I did email you because fortunately I was able to see the agenda in time to do so. Now that we really don't have a local newspaper which reports faithfully on the city council anymore. It was just sheer luck that I happened to be on the city website and look at the agenda and find that, and I was able to comment early. In some cases, people might not be, and I think it's important that people be able to comment at the beginning of the meeting, as I mentioned in my email, specifically because there's no other opportunity to comment on the consent agenda. And things can fly past in the consent agenda. It's very important to allow the public to request that items be removed from that. Now, in the past, the early comment period was eliminated because there were specific members of the public who were wasting council's time or causing the meetings to run late. And I sympathize 100% with the vice mayor's assertion that it's important to get down to business. So I think the right answer is not to shut off debate, but to find a balance. I would favor going ahead with the amendment, but if council doesn't want to do that, I'd like to suggest a couple of other other options. One might be to have a shorter period at the beginning and then allow more time at the end if there's time to do that. The second thing would be at least to allow comment on the consent agenda as if it was an item so that people would have the opportunity to discuss what's on the consent agenda before it whizzes through with zero opportunity for public comment. And I remember also at one point, council was rotating speakers and saying that people only had a certain, if you have to limit debate, at least do it in a way that still allows the public to talk. But please don't shut off debate. And please don't make it incredibly inconvenient for someone to come before you and talk about things. Zoom does make it easier, but it's still, most people can't spend all night on the internet. They have other things to do. And it'd be a terrible shame. This is what council is here for. I volunteered, as you know, to be a member of council, and part of the commitment I was willing to make was to listen to the public and to dedicate that half hour, if need be, to hearing public input. So I urge you to please do so. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments and suggestions. Other public comment on this item? Close public comment on the item. Council members, back to you for comments and further discussion while the item is on the floor. Seeing none, let's have a roll call vote on the amendment. City Clerk.
No.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
No.
Pierce,
No.
Weaver,
Yes.
That's 6 yeses and 3 noes, Your Honor.
The amendment has carried. Councilmember O'Doherty.
I'd like to offer an amendment to remove the last public comment section if we have an executive session that night. So my amendment is to not include public comment at the end of a regular meeting if we have an executive session.
Second.
Motion and a second. I wonder if someone on the council would raise the question about the ability of the council to waive any item on rules and procedures for just such an occasion as Councilmember O'Doherty has outlined. My understanding is that that is the case, but I'm not in a position to raise that issue, but I wonder if somebody might. In the meantime, Councilmember Harrington.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. That is a great question that I would love an answer to from the city clerk, but I would also be curious more specifically what this would look like in practice on an evening in which an executive session was added at the beginning of the meeting and we had already posted a public agenda, including that public comment at the end.
All right. I think the question was for Councilmember O'Doherty about what that is envisioned to look like, and maybe that scenario. Councilmember O'Doherty?
I don't know. Could we ask the city clerk for ideas as far as the rules thing?
We certainly can, and I wonder if the city clerk might address the previous question about the council's ability to make adjustments to rules and procedure as dictated by the needs of the agenda, and how that works.
Thank you, Mayor. To hopefully answer Councilor Harrington's question, currently the way that the council operates, at the beginning of the meeting when you're making changes to the agenda, you could remove the public comment period at the end of the agenda during that item 5 on the agenda. If you were to suspend the rules, it does require a 2/3 majority vote. So that would be done during the meeting itself.
So City Clerk, I think I heard you describe two different ways to approach situations to manage time on the agenda. Council members, further discussion on this topic. My observation, Council, is that we often do not use procedural tools that are available to us because we're not used to doing so, and maybe create more work for ourselves in situations like this where we're trying to find a way to create a rules and procedures document that speaks to every possible scenario that we might encounter, which frankly isn't very practical, and that we might focus on our ability to make adjustments as needed through tools that we already have. Just some thoughts from me. Other discussion? Councilmember Gabriel.
Thanks, Mayor.
And then I'll go
I
to you,
can
Vice Mayor.
envision somebody not aware of the rules and waiting throughout the agenda to make a comment. And then, oh, by the way, we've suspended public comment. I don't think it's a good idea. And as you mentioned, I think we can move along, and if we need to suspend some rules or make a motion to do something at the end, we can, but to actually put that in the rules of procedure, I think is a bad idea.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. Yes, and in fact, I don't think it needs to be, and that's sort of my point, is that the rules and procedures, depending on how we need to apply them, are already addressed in the Robert's Rules of Order rule book for those few times when we might need to do so. My point is that those tools are there in those situations when they arise, and my opinion is we're not terribly good at using those tools when it might be appropriate. Vice Mayor, thanks for waiting.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. I appreciate the thought, in terms of working around suspension of rules or deleting an item from the agenda when the agenda is set. I get that, but I think I'd have to agree with Councilor Gabriel in terms of the unfortunate possibility of either folks showing up to comment at the beginning of the meeting or at the end of the meeting on non-agenda items. I think it would send a not such a good message, and I don't think we want to get in that practice. But I do like the thought of possible suspension of rules or removing particular items, which we occasionally do anyway, but public comment I don't think is the one that we should be messing with. I would like to point out though, our meetings start at 6:30, they go until 9 o'clock. We've got the possibility of having 1 hour for public comments. So I think we're going to have to, over time, reduce our agenda items if we spend an hour on non-agenda items during our regular meetings. So.
Thank you, Vice Mayor. Two thoughts occur to me: either reduce our agenda items or increase the amount of meetings we've had, which is certainly something we've also done over the course of the last couple of years, more recently than in the past anyway. A thought I have, again, folks, and I appreciate your patience with this, but these are process discussions, and sometimes those are the nitty-grittiest. The trouble with being able to deal with all of these things up front at the beginning of the meeting so that we don't inconvenience people who have taken time to be here is that we don't always know if we're going to need to make changes to manage time at the beginning of the meeting. We can guess, and we certainly try to schedule items on the agenda to have some flow and put those that we think are going to take less time or earlier in the evening so that we can get them out of the way in an effort to try to conserve more time later on in the meeting. But we don't always know. And I'm not suggesting that the council get in a regular habit of suspending the rules. My point is that's a tool we have available for the rare circumstances where it might be necessary. And it applies to essentially every procedural step that we take, at least in terms of discussion time, how items are introduced, and modifications to the agenda. Not that it should be a regular practice, just that it's available there. And I don't know that we need to copy and paste sections of Robert's Rules of Order into the agenda or into our rules and procedures as a council, because it already says in there that we will refer back to those. Just to be clear about my own suggestion. Now, as far as the problem of being able to anticipate and look into the magic 8-ball and know, when we need to make changes at the beginning of the meeting, I don't know that that's going to be a reliable way to deal with this problem either. It seems to me that the reoccurring theme here is we're concerned about inconveniencing people when they come to meetings and they want to speak to us on topics. That's a legitimate concern. I don't know that it's one that there's a perfect solution for. Certainly, I've attended public meetings where time has ran out, and those opportunities haven't existed because of those scheduling issues. I've certainly been at meetings of other government bodies and run into that. I think we try really hard to provide ample public comment time. But on the basis of the passage of the last amendment, we haven't changed anything yet. Back to the main motion. Other discussion. City Clerk.
Mr. Mayor, we are still on that amendment to remove public comment at the end of the meeting if there's an executive session.
Back to the motion. Back to the motion. Thank you, City Clerk. Councilmember O'Doherty.
Yeah. May I amend my amendment to say if an executive session has been scheduled, like if it's already on the agenda for a week, then that should be enough time. If we just find out on the day, then I think we keep public comment.
Second agrees.
Okay. Any further discussion on the modified amendment? City Clerk, may I have a roll call on the amendment?
Humby.
No.
Harrington.
No.
Schmeckel.
No.
Somerville.
Yes.
Gabriel.
No.
O'Doherty.
Yes.
Pierce.
Yes.
Schuster.
Thank you. No.
Sorry about that. Weaver.
Yes.
That's 4 yeses and 5 noes, Your Honor.
Thank you, City Clerk. Council members, we have made no changes to the rules and procedures. Back to the main motion. Back to the main motion.
Mr. Mayor, point of information, we have rules proposed. We have changes proposed. The bit about, so we're still, the whole motion has lots of changes. So we just haven't changed any of the, well, we just added public comment back in, but there's still a lot of other edits.
Right, there are pending changes. Yes, I agree. There are pending changes. City Clerk.
Mayor, I was just going to point out what Councilor O'Doherty did, that you did approve one amendment to bring back the comment period at the beginning of the meeting.
Well, fine. So let me clarify, council members. We have not changed the rules and procedures as none of the proposals so far have passed. If that satisfies, then let's move on to the main motion. Back to it. Other discussion. Councilmember Harrington. Oh, Councilmember O'Doherty.
I like the changes. I think I'm glad that we have Robert's rules right at our fingertips. I'm glad that the city clerk cut and pasted or whatever. I think it just makes it a lot clearer. So I support the rest of the changes. Thank you.
Thank you. City Clerk.
Mayor, if I could just make a suggestion to the council to look at under Chapter 4, Council Code of Conduct with the Public, 402A3, the suggested, based off from the work session, the change was for comments on matters on the agenda as regular item at near the beginning with an aggregate of 30 minutes and at the end of the meeting. That was, the wording was kind of changed in this proposal. So if you're bringing that back at the beginning, that might need to be amended to reinstate their wording that was previously there, if that makes sense.
I think so. Does everyone follow what the city clerk is asking us? All right, so that may require an amendment. I have a question. Councilmember Cumby, are you raising a hand? Oh, okay. Yeah, you're doing what I do, which is often putting your elbow up here, and then sometimes I think I see a hand. And it speaks back to Councilmember Harrington's question, which is just that if there's some circumstance where we're unable to teleconference or video conference through the internet, does the council feel comfortable with just a waiving of the rules through some means or some fashion so that folks could attend just the telephone call in using speaker systems like the good old days? Are we comfortable that we would just deal with that on an ad hoc basis? I am, but I think it's worth talking about. Councilmember Harrington?
Mr. Mayor, I'm favorable to that as an idea, but the city clerk did mention the need to maintain that system. And so I think for that reason, just the expense of maintaining that system may push me towards calling in on the Zoom call instead of the sort of old-fashioned way, as you said.
Yeah, I appreciate it. And I agree with you. My concern is if for some reason we're unable to do so, if we're just comfortable dealing with that on an ad hoc basis, and I guess we would deal with it if we had to. So we'll just leave it there. Once again, not something that we can make rules for every little circumstance that might come up. But I did think it was a good question. Other discussion or motions? I know the city clerk has suggested a motion for clarity. Councilmember O'Doherty.
My cursor in the wrong place. So I would like to clarify, and I'm not exactly sure. So it's 4.02A number 3. So we just go back to the original text? So I propose that we go to the original text so on page 21, it's under public comments under 4.02A, so that under regular meetings, the third item just reverts to the original text.
Second.
Okay, and a second from Councilmember Harrington. Does everyone understand the change? Good, okay. Further discussion or amendments? Well, City Clerk.
I was trying to anticipate where you were going, Mayor. I was just going to ask if we were going to vote on this amendment, but
I think so. I think so. Let's do that now. Roll call, please.
Cumbie,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Smeckel,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
That amendment carries. Back to the main motion. Further comment or discussion? Council members, the rules and procedures remain largely unchanged. We've removed telephone and discussed that and the reasons for doing so, and also established that should the need arise for telephone meetings again for some reason, we'll deal with it when the time comes. Any other discussion? I'm going to make a closing comment. You probably anticipated that. I preferred the public comment system that was in place when I first joined the council. I voted for the changes that we now operate under in 2019 in a let's see how it goes spirit. I don't think it's been particularly efficient. I don't agree that it's required to have it at the beginning of meetings. I don't know that it makes for better meetings, but I do have trouble finding a good argument against trying to make it convenient for members of the public. That's the struggle that I have, because I do think we have some duty to do that. I think we've gone overboard on public comment, and I also acknowledge that I run the risk of, just by saying that, making myself vulnerable to some sort of attack or criticism for not being in favor of public comment. I would preempt that by saying that's ridiculous. I think during the entire course of the time I've been on council, I've tried to find ways for public comment to be integrated and certainly supported every way to create more of it. I don't think there's a good solution to this because we want to make things convenient for people to engage with their local government. And we have to do that sometimes even at the expense of efficient meetings. I think there's an expectation there. I think that's a bad set of circumstances. I think it's unfortunate that we've had council members spend a lot of time working on proposed changes to these, and then as we've discussed them, we haven't really seen fit to, perhaps for good reasons, but we haven't seen fit to change a great deal of our system. I'm not sure what a good solution is. I think once you create multiple opportunities for public comment, it's hard to get away from maintaining and keeping them in place. We've had public comment on this topic, so I'll give you one more chance at it, council members. Let's have a roll call vote.
Schmeckel,
I apologize. I have forgotten what the main question is. And
Not a problem. Councilmember Schmeckel, this vote is on the entirety of the rules and procedures as amended or unchanged. So the document as a whole, the final vote on this topic.
yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumbie,
Yes.
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
No.
That's 8 yeses and 1 no, Your Honor.
And the motion carries. Which takes us to item number 17. Councilmember Somerville.
Just a second. Here we go.
No problem. No problem.
Thank you, Mayor. So I would move to approve memorandum of understanding between the County of Albany, Wyoming, the Albany County Sheriff's Office, and the City of Laramie, Wyoming for housing of municipal inmates, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign.
Second.
There's a motion and a second by Councilmember O'Doherty. Thank you, council members. Is the city manager here to give us a staff background on it? City manager,
Yes.
over to you.
Thank you, Mayor. From 1992 through 2020, the city and county had an agreement for housing inmates at the Albany County Detention Center. This memorandum of understanding tonight will provide for future housing of municipal inmates through June 30th, 2025. That's a 5-year period. There's no continuation clause in the agreement. It will need to be renegotiated at the end of that 5-year time frame. Under this memorandum, the city will pay a full day $75 rate and a partial day 40-hour fee, as well as any pre-authorized medical care for inmates in the custody of our police department or those that have been sentenced in the municipal court. The sheriff will provide housing at the detention center and transport and secure prisoners as needed for arraignment before municipal court. That is a bit of a change from our current practice, wherein the City of Laramie Police Department has been providing those transport and security services for municipal court activities. The total cost we estimate of this prisoner housing agreement will be per year ranging between $100,000 to $130,000, that coming from general fund and general revenue. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Questions for the city manager, Councilmember O'Doherty.
When the university police take someone into custody, do they become our whatever? Are they our responsibility, or is it the university?
That's a great question, Councilor O'Doherty, through you, Mayor Weaver. The agreement provides that it would be only inmates that are, like I said, in the custody of City of Laramie Police Department or charged by our officers. So no, the direct answer is if the University of Wyoming provides that citation, that it would not hit the city. The more complex answer is that oftentimes there are multiple charges pending, and so there's a possibility that someone could have interactions with both agencies, and then the city might be paying a portion. So that's the short answer that gets a little bit into the complexities.
Thank you.
Other questions for the city manager? Councilmember Somerville, anything you'd like to add to this as you made the motion for the item?
Thank you, Mayor. Just to add, this MOU was started for the renegotiation back with the previous council, and so we brought this forward to those council collaborative working groups. So this was Vice Mayor Pierce, myself, and Commissioner Gosar that worked with city staff and the sheriff to kind of bring this to fruition. I'm very happy to see it here and get that item knocked off the agenda. So I appreciate all the work everybody put into it.
Thank you for that. And thank you to the Vice Mayor and the council member for the time spent working on the committee. This has been kind of a long-standing issue that needed to be resolved, and I'm glad that we were able to find a satisfactory outcome. Councilmember Gabriel.
Thank you, Mayor. I was involved with this back in '91 when I was first elected as a county commissioner, and 30 years ago, comes full circle, I happened to find the ballot from the county clerk today, August 8th, 1989, ballot proposition 1% capital facilities sales tax to build the detention center. $12,243,000. One of my first duties as a commissioner was a joint powers board member for the detention center. City Manager Flip McConaughey came before the Joint Powers Board and said we're about $2.4 million short of what we want to do to build this detention center. What are we going to do? So the city manager proposed that the city would offer $328 million of mineral royalty money. I take that 328, but a number of dollars to help this Joint Powers Board be able to complete the proposed detention center the way we wanted it done, because we had no idea how we were going to finish and even get the process started. So the city came to the county and said, we're going to give you this federal royalty money for minerals as long as you don't charge us for our prisoners. And so that agreement was through 2020, and I'm just happy as heck to see this conclude, because I know it's been a tough process and a lot of people involved, and nice to see this before us tonight.
Thank you, Councilmember Gabriel. I agree, and I'm one for histories, and I'm glad you provided that for us. Other comments? Long-running topic, about ready to be put to bed. Quick question, what's the duration of the MOU, City Manager?
Mayor, it is for 5 years, but it is backdated to July 1st, and so we are already a ways into that.
Okay, that was kind of where I was coming from. I wasn't sure. So it's 5 years with some of that time already spent.
Correct.
All right. And Councilmember Schuster, I think you were just giving me that. All right. I appreciate that. Well, it's great to see a resolution to a complicated intergovernmental issue. Let's see if there's public comment on it. Seeing none, close the public comment on that. Last chance, council members. City Clerk, can we have a roll call?
Schuster,
Yes.
Somerville,
Yes.
Harrington,
Yes.
Gabriel,
Yes.
Cumby,
Yes.
O'Doherty,
Yes.
Schmeckel,
Yes.
Pierce,
Yes.
Weaver.
Yes.
That's 9 yeses and 0 nos, Your Honor.
That motion carries. All right. We'll now go to public comments on non-agenda items. Seeing none, we'll close public comment on non-agenda items. And we'll go to number 19, consideration of future council work session topics. No discussion. There was a little bit of, Councilmember Gabriel.
I think we've talked about this previously, but I'm not sure about what Councilor O'Doherty brought up recently about trailers, RVs being parked on the street. I'm not sure if that issue has been discussed enough.
I would second the need for learning about how we handle that, or maybe somebody can just point me to it and don't need a work session. Thanks.
I got to tell you, folks, I can't wait to hear what Councilmember Schuster has to say about this. Councilmember Schuster.
This came up approximately 4 years ago, so some of the councilmen should remember, because Chief Stalder asked us, do you want to enforce, because we have a really strange situation where certain districts of town have an anti-trailer law and certain districts of town do not have it. So he asked the council at that time, do you want this enforced or not? And they took a vote and the answer was no. So just like you talk about history, this has been brought up before, and we've enforced it, then not enforced it, not enforced it. So is there something on the books? Yes, there is. Is it for the entire city? No, it is not. So it gets really, really strange. How's that for your history today?
I love it. I love it. And I remember when council last visited that topic, and it's a can of worms. City manager, would you like to weigh in on the merits of revisiting this policy as the council and seeing if there's, in your opinion, something we could get out of a work session here, or anything else you'd like to add?
Mayor, we could certainly cover the current municipal ordinances pertaining to parking trailers on city rights-of-way, which is allowable. At least it would get everyone kind of on the same page going forward as far as understanding what is currently allowed or not.
Okay. In other words, yep, if we want to talk about it, the staff is happy to review it for us. Councilmember O'Doherty?
I was just thinking as it pertains to bike lanes, maybe we could visit to make sure that trailers aren't blocking bike lanes. So we have those nice stripes painted on there, and I think a lot of people just think it means as long as I'm parked within this, I'm safe, but really it's supposed to allow for bicycles. So I would like to have that addressed.
Councilmember Cumby?
And if we remove the trailers from the bike lanes, are we then going to remove the cars and the trucks?
Well, I think the work session request to try to keep the discussion on track is about trailers, but that's a neat question too. And when we say trailers, I would assume that we're talking about flatbed trailers, recreational trailers, boat trailers with boats on them and everything else. Council members, at our last work session where we were talking about housing and the topic of parking came up and this was touched on, yours truly, because he's fond of some aspects of his old stomping grounds. You know, they have a municipal recreational vehicle lot in Green River. And boy, that's a community where boats and recreational vehicles and all the trailers that are necessary for them are all over the place and popular. But the city provides for fee storage area for those, and it's helped address some of that problem. I don't know if that's something that this council would be interested in taking a look at or considering, and just tell me right now if you think it's a bad idea or not. If some of you like that idea, I wonder if we might incorporate that into a discussion. Maybe it wouldn't be something we'd move forward with. Maybe there'd be some merit to it. I don't know. What do people think? Councilmember Gabriel.
Thanks, Mayor. You know, the one issue I have is the trailer parked right on the corner, and I go by this trailer every day where you have to creep out halfway into the intersection to see if there's any traffic coming. And maybe that's just an enforcement, idea or something we need to talk with Mr. Forster about. I don't know, but that's really a dangerous situation. The big trailer where you can't see around, and you see that all over town. So I don't know.
Sure. Well, okay. I think there's sufficient interest for a work session on it. And if nobody objects, let me put my little plug in there for exploring maybe some options for providing space for people to maybe, park their recreational vehicles somewhere other than a city street for long term. Anything else for future work session topics? Now that we've revisited one of our favorites. All right. Upcoming meetings, there was a little bit of discussion about that. I think we got it resolved. The council members from Ward 3 that are wanting to are going to have a face-to-face, safe and following appropriate protocol meeting at Washington Park. There'll be a Zoom option for folks that want to talk to the other council members as a sounding board ward meeting type session for anyone that's interested in doing things that way. Okay. Anything else for upcoming meetings? Council members, we have a good city council and we talk about things thoroughly and we dig into stuff, and I think everybody does a really, really good job of that, and I really appreciate it. I'd just like to point that out at this meeting. And you're all phenomenally patient, which I appreciate. Councilmember Schuster, let's go to the next item, which is yours.
I move to adjourn to executive session regarding land negotiations, Wyoming State Statute 16-4-405, small letter A, Roman numeral 7.
Second.
Motion and a second. All those in favor of adjourning to executive session, please say aye or raise your hand.
Aye.
All right.
Should we make sure that Councilor Schmeckel knows that we live?